Hey guys, welcome to the Ace Vapor channel. For any of you that don't know who I am, I'm Philip. Today we're going to be discussing a common problem and a common question that I do get here at the store. Juuls. These guys right here. This is going to be a three-part video. Part one, we're going to go over how to clean the Juul and the different components that are within the Juul, as well as common issues you may run into while you're using it. The second part will be pod issues, so common issues that are related to the actual pod itself. That'll be in the second part, including leakage, the cleaning and adjustment of the connection prongs. Part three will be how to refill the Juul with your own salt-based nicotine juices. Alright, so let's not waste any time. Let's get right down to it. Alright guys, part one of this video, we're going to talk about the components of a Juul. This will be for the body component itself. So this section right here, I'm going to show you how to disassemble it, how to clean it, show you different parts of it. So if you run into any issues yourself, you also can fix your Juul yourself. Alright, so let's dive on in and take a look. Alright guys, so this is the Juul. Now for anyone that's not too familiar with a Juul, this is your pod right here. Now the pod removes by a simple tug. We'll toss that off to the side. We won't need that for this right now. Now the basic component of a Juul on the outside, you have a small LED that is going to be placed right here. Now it's not activated unless there is a pod installed. There we go. So we have the pod and the light. The next component of your Juul is the charger, or the contacts for the charger are located at the base here. Now, one common issue I do find is no one cleans these, so make sure you do keep these contacts clean, otherwise you may run into charging issues with the Juul itself. Now, for the next part of the Juul, to get to the internal guts of the Juul, you're going to need to use something. Now, I use a pair of scissors. You can use anything that's going to apply pressure to the bottom of this to push the internals of the Juul out through the top, and this is going to be how we're going to clean the Juul. Alright, so a small bit of pressure on the bottom here, alright, and a push should push all the guts out the top. So a little push. Let's see if we can get this to go. And there we go. So there is the guts pushed up. Now you don't have to push this any further. I will fully remove it so you get a whole idea of what we're looking at here. So here we are. Okay. So shell, you see, hollow. So we'll toss that off to the side, shall we? Now this is your main Juul components, okay? You're going to have a few pieces here that you're going to want to be paying close attention to. So let's zoom on in a little bit. So it's hard to tell. Now right here, we'll use this to kind of help out. This is your valve, okay? Right here. So when you inhale, this valve is going to activate. That's going to allow the Juul to fire. Alright, now a common issue I do find with these is this can get gunked up with juice. As you can tell, there is a bit of juice buildup on the device itself. Now that's from my usage, mainly myself, and I haven't cleaned this one yet, so this will be a fantastic system here to show you. So now, this piece is a rubber seal for the actual Juul. Okay, we're going to remove this. Now by removing this, we can clean this up, this rubber. And make sure you use any alcohol-based cleaner. You're not going to want to use soap and water. You're going to want to use alcohol-based cleaners to clean the Juul itself. So we're going to again toss this down here where we're not going to really need it. Alright, let's zoom out. Don't need to be that close. So now you're going to see here, you're going to have these two prongs. Okay. Now these prongs should float. And again, I will show you. We'll put this on here. Now you'll see this is floating up and down. You want these to always be able to move. A common issue you may have if you're pulling your pod and out and in and out and in and it's just not giving you the right connection, there's a good chance one of these little prongs is gunked up with juice, and sometimes they just don't come back up and don't make a proper connection. That is an issue, so just a little alcohol in there will clean that up. And a little alcohol on the bleeder valve right here, or your little valve. You're going to want to clean that up as well. And this should stop any issues you're having as far as connectivity. So we'll pop this guy back on. So you're just going to push this right back onto here. And you're just going to slide it back in place. Alright, now some of the older design Juuls have a different style valve. It'll be just a solid black piece. Does not matter. When you're removing this rubber grommet, if you do have this style, it is a little trickier to put back in place. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to push on the actual rubber. You'll see it's got an opening on it here, and that's got to slip back over that little white valve. So if I can do this on camera, let's give it a try. Alright, and we're back. Was a bit of a pain to get that back in, but I got it back in. As you can tell, you can see the valve again. Alright, so you just push this all back into place, the rubber on top. Now, I found when you're installing this back into the Juul, some people do it from the top, some do it from the bottom. I'm going to suggest to do it from the bottom. Now the reason I suggest this, if you're going from the top, you might have a hard time with this rubber seal here sliding off of the prongs, and it can be a pain in the butt, and sometimes your pods, if this is stuck up, your pod won't make a connection or it'll force the pod out. So I do it from the bottom. Now keep in mind, remember your light we were looking at earlier, make sure you put that on the right side. So I slide this in just like this, okay, and you're just gonna slide it right back into the device just like that. And the last thing I do is I just put it against a flat surface and give it a push. I don't have one here accessible, so we will just push it with this. There we go. Now you want to make sure this sits flush. Okay, you can always test it after. Make sure you pop a pod in, and we have connection. So that is the first part of this video, was the components of the Juul itself and how to clean it. Now remember, only use alcohol base, and I usually just use a Q-tip. You don't need much. Just wipe up the excess juice that you see around the internals of the device. Alright, let's move on to part 2. Alright guys, and in part 2, we're going to be looking at the pod itself. Okay, now there are common problems with the Juul pods that do come up. Problem one that I hear all the time, my pod does not fit right. Second part, it doesn't hit right. Some people have to remove the pod and turn it around and reinsert it to get the vape to work properly. And the third one is my pod leaks. We're also going to look at that, common ways to get rid of that, easy ways to get rid of it, whatnot. So let's dive down and take a look at the pod next. Alright guys, now part 2 of the video, we're going to go over the Juul pod. Now I do get questions all the time about the pod. Question 1, my pod is not fitting properly. Now sometimes you might find you get a pod that fits snug, and then the next one may not fit as nice. Now the easiest way to fix this is the Juul itself. Now my pod here snaps in real nice, and that's what you're looking for when you install the pod. If you find that it's loose or it's just not holding properly, what you're going to want to do is the cutout for the opening of the pod might be a little big. So all I do is I'm going to squeeze it from here and here to add a little bit of a tighter, snugger fit. Sometimes when these are stamped, they just stamped a little too big at the end here. So a little squeeze should fix it. Just a little squeeze. You don't have to go crazy. Nothing that's going to damage the Juul. Just a little squeeze should fix it. And already I can see a harder, snugger fit. And that'll fix up any of the issues you may run into as far as pod fitment. Now another issue I do get a lot is connectivity. If you've already cleaned the Juul, you've cleaned the prongs, and you're still not getting a proper connectivity, it could be the pod itself. Now when you look at the pod here, you see at the bottom you got these two prongs. Now these ones have been already lifted up a bit, but sometimes they sit a little too flush or too flat and they don't make a proper connection. So what I do is I just take a little knife or something, and you're just going to want to go into the prong right here and just apply a little upward pressure. And what that's going to do is it's going to stick the prong out just a little bit further and make that connection a little better. And you want to make sure you keep these clean as well, not just the ones in the Juul. Electricity needs to be able to flow from the Juul to the pod as easy as possible, and by lifting those up, you're going to get a better connection to the actual Juul itself. If you find that when you install the Juul after doing this, it's pushing itself out, you may have bent these too far, so just push them in a little bit with your finger and that will fix any of the issue you may have with the pod's fitment itself. Now another issue I do get with the Juul pods is customers complaining about leakage. Now, as a Juul dies, you may run into leakage due to the fact that it doesn't have the power to power this anymore and it floods the coil itself. Now, the easiest way to clear out the chamber of any juice, so if you're getting leakage or juice coming up in your mouth, is you're going to want to clear this right out of juice, the entire chimney that runs from the top to bottom. And the easiest way to do this is you're going to put some paper towel behind it, just like this, and you want to blow into it one really nice hard blow. And that's going to clear out any juice in there and it should repressurize the Juul pod for you. And that's about it when it comes down to the actual Juul pod's issues itself. If I've missed anything, please leave it in the comments and I'll make sure I come back and touch base on that one. Alright guys, now part 3, we're going to go over how to refill a Juul pod. One of these guys. Now, to refill it, it's very simple. Now, forewarned, if the pod leaks, which it has a higher chance of leaking, if you do find you're going to open the pod, your chance of leaking does increase by a little bit. Juul will not cover this as a warranty problem. So, forewarned, you're going to start refilling your own Juul pods. You take the warranty into your own hands. Alright, so let's dive on down and let's take a look on how to fill a Juul pod with your own salt-based e-juices. Now the next part of this video, we're going to go over how to fill your own Juul pods. Now some people don't want to continuously buy these pods and they want to fill it with their own flavor. So if you want to use a lower nicotine strength or the flavors that are offered by Juul just aren't doing it for you, I can show you how to fill these. Today we're going to be using VCT, Vanilla Custard Tobacco by Ripe Vapes. It's going to be in a 30 or 3% milligram nicotine dose. Alright, so here's the Juul pod. Now the Juul pod is held together by these small tangs. So let's do some zooming in here so I can show you. So, there we go. So, you got a tang on this side. You're going to have a tang on this side. You need to remove at least one of these or lift it above this notch in order to pull the top off to fill the pod. Now I'm going to use a pocket knife. Now guys, always be careful. In. You'll see, and all I'm doing is I'm applying a small bit of pressure. Focus. There we go, right under the pod. And I'm just going to wiggle just a little bit. Now you should be able to grab the pod and open it up. Bam! Just like that. So we have the top removed. You're going to have this rubber gasket on the top here. You need to remove this as well. Again, I just use a small pocket knife to remove. So we have the pod open now. So now you can fill it with any of your juice. So we're going to use some of this beautiful VCT. And you're just going to fill it. Now you're going to want to take your little rubber grommet. You're going to want to put it right on the top. Now mine was already dry. If yours is wet, take a quick second and wipe it down with paper towel just so you have a better seal across the top here. And the last thing you do, just take your little cap, pop it in place. Just like that. And now you've filled your own Juul pod. Now keep in mind, the more times you fill the pod, you may experience more leakage due to the fact that we are breaking the air pressure within the pod itself. So something to be wary about. Just keep your eyes on the pod in case you do run into leakage with the pod itself. Once you have this removed once, it should be easy to remove it after that. Now again, like I explained in part 2, you want to clear this before you vape it. So you want to put a piece of paper towel right behind it, just like this, and you're going to want to blow into it. One really hard blow should clear it right out. And that should be the end of that. And you can fill with your own juice. Alright guys, well I hope you enjoyed today's video. Just some mild information about the Juul that may help you keep this operating. Very simple, very fantastic system to use, and with a little bit of help you can keep these things running forever. Please, if I missed anything or anything you want to see in future videos, please comment down below, like the channel, and please subscribe if you want to see more content. I'm Philip, and thanks for coming by. Bye-bye.